Alright, welcome to another edition of What the Fuck Happenings here in Mendham. Not really. So I'm in another place, but I might as well be in Mendham. Who cares? Not very relevant. Physical location, who cares? Where your head is what matters, mostly. And I guess I could sort of argue that my head is supposed to be, basically my whole universe is inside my head. Because I'm responding to my own videos. Because frankly, the rest of the world isn't saying anything worth even listening to. Mostly. It's just the way it is. So, I sort of have to, well, whatever. Whatever. I have to live, I have to create a game worth playing, and it's not worth playing with you people, so I'll just play with myself, so to speak, and it'll work out just fine. Anyway, so yes, just more philosophy, okay, and just cutting it down to its bare minimum. It's just a universe full of clumpy stuff. Some of the clumpy stuff has features that enable it to act in kind of bizarre manner, and one of the bizarre actions is feelings, okay, and then the thoughts used to manipulate the conditions that produce the feelings, and that's pretty much all there is, and it's totally waste feelings because they really can't go anywhere. You have to create the deficit before you can create the whatever the non-deficit is. And that's all it is. It's just digging yourself out of holes, and you should never have been put in the hole in the first place. So that's all you could do in this simplest kind of generic summation of existence is, yes, it just, throws you into a hole, and you just spend your existence crawling your way out. But you never get really out, and you get killed in the end anyway. So the whole thing is futile and pointless. All right. You have to work your way to the conclusion. So the way you work your way to the conclusion is drawing certain conclusions about reality. One of them is that there's no gods, there's no magic, it's a mechanical universe. We get to sample it, and we get to see a little bit of the future, and we can notice futures that are going badly, and we can try to do something about it, but all of that will be inevitable. None of that will be a surprise that we react to what we see and say, hey, that's a shitty thing, let's stop that from happening. So it's all part of the script, rewriting the script, blah 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 blah. So it's all themes I've hit in the past, just kind of thrown in one video. So we'll see where it goes. We'll see if I muse myself into saying anything profoundly profound. First is the usual, just profoundness. One foot will decide who wins and who loses it. Okay, so I was talking about the fact that I did actually watch some sports. It's not like you have to. It's not like I'm completely anti-indulging in stupid and silly rituals, okay, that are pleasurable because we're retarded mechanisms that need vicarious feeding sometimes. And so, yes, I like golf, and so now and then I do watch it, okay, but I'm watching more of the psychology of it, and frankly, I'm noticing more and more, which makes it less and less pleasant, all the unpleasant parts where shit happens and you just say, well, that just ruined that guy's life. His whole destiny just changed because he hit the ball 3 inches too short. That kind of stuff. And so in a way it's it's not as much fun as, say, the old days where I just picked somebody to root for. But even that was frustrating, right? Because a lot of times the guy you're rooting for doesn't win, and it's just all very disappointing and tragic and sad. And so it's probably best not played with. So all the soap operas are better not involving yourself in, because they're just wasteful distractions. But again, we need wasteful distractions now and then, because if you just sit here and do philosophy, if you think too much, too often, it's going to hurt a lot. That's my experience, anyway. Your victory, and it's not just about this day or any. So so I was just talking about the fact that I'm playing a competition of sorts, with this physics argument I'm making and this philosophical argument. Just the fact that I'm just arguing that the conventional notions of reality, whether we're talking about the science or we're talking about the philosophy, I'd argue it's all just the same thing. It's efforts to diagram correctly, draw the right picture of what connecting the dots, the information we can glean from the universe, and correctly identifying what the dots are and how you connect them properly. And so that's the competition I'm in. So as a personal individual, this is my job, so to speak. It's my, I'm a golfer, I'm a philosopher, or whatever, or a scientist, whatever. I'm doing that, whether people think I have a right to or not. That's what I'm doing. And I'm diagramming what I'm claiming is the reality. All right. And the funny thing is, though, in this competition, as this is my skill, I think I'm good at it. And the fact is, though, I don't have, I can, unlike some sports person who has to show up and perform, I don't have to. All I have to do is make a record of my best performance, so to speak, in this form of a video, and I can just let that ride into the future and constantly defeat whatever's out there trying to defeat it, and say, go ahead, defeat the argument. It's there to be beaten. There's the score. I put it on the card. Okay. And so it's just kind of ironic, because I can actually end up winning, the big game, but I'll never get to enjoy the fact that I won, because I'll win when I'm not here anymore. And that's the kind of ironic, weird part, is that I can't enjoy what I think will be my victory. I mean, I think I will win, in the sense that I got all the answers right on the test, but no one's going to grade my test, until I'm dead. They won't grade it correctly, let's just say, until I'm dead. And so I don't get to do the fun part of just feeling, I did it, now I can relax. I don't get to do that. So I'm stuck, like some soldier in a war that he doesn't know he's going to win, just grinding away, saying, oh shit, I gotta do this another time, oh I gotta do this, oh shit, so I just have to keep fighting to improve my scorecard, because I don't know if it's good enough yet. All of that kind of crap. And so, so it doesn't mean anything. It's just, I'm just pointing out that that's the psychology I have to live in, is, decades of contemplating and stressing and trying to be relevant. And even though I know I'm relevant, and that I'm right, I'm not relevant in the pragmatic, I can show you my relevancy wins. I don't have any wins, because I'm only going to get them when I'm dead, which sucks. It's sort of like Van Gogh or something, right? Not that he was a very skilled painter, but I mean, as a impressionist, he was very good in terms of, creating enduring interpretations of reality that, are hard to ignore as significantly poignant. Starry, Starry Night and such. We can know a lot about how it works, or what it's like to be the thinking, feeling thing. So yeah, we can diagram and dissect our functionality. We can understand a lot about the universe, and it doesn't have to have all this wooey crap in it of gods and quantum. And you can understand it's just a mechanical machine, and we're just machines in the machine. And the fact is that it's kind of as raw numbers, it's incomprehensibly complex, but the mechanism inside of that complexity is not complex. So just as a computer scientist can understand a computer, a scientist can in a lot of ways understand the migration of action in the universe and understand processes of evolution and change as systems age and all of that kind of stuff, and understand the context in which we exist as waste engines, in the sense that we're wasting a bunch of torture for no prospect of useful, productive action. Feeling experience. I mean, useful beyond stopping our own broken functionality. So beyond turning us off because we suck, we don't have any function. And that's the sort of the direction automatically decided by the existence of the feeling, because the feeling has the component of good and bad. So feelings are innately value rich, and so I don't have to make some beyond an axiomatic statement saying that's the source of value, because there's not going to be any counter argument that could in any way be coherent or rational to say that it's not. I mean, you're not going to be able to convince me that feeling good is superior to feeling bad, and it's almost necessary and vital that I don't feel very bad, that I don't be tortured, that the value is real, and it is a better universe where things aren't tortured to death. And it's just a fact that if you could extract all the little kids dying of cancer happening, and instead they're playing golf, that's so much better then. And that's just a fact, and that's the nature of value, is when the feeling organism shows up. Now what happens in all the rest of the environment matters, because it's going to affect the feeling thing. So somewhere in here I point out the Descartesian statement of I think, therefore I am, and convert it into I feel, therefore there's value, and I think, therefore there's relevancy, because thinking can affect the value engines, okay, and what value is produced, negative or positive. And that concept that nothing else in the universe makes much difference, and probably the wrong way to say it. So the stuff in the rest of the universe matters only because we matter. The feeling things matter. So if they don't exist, the feeling things don't exist, then what happens is nothing can matter. Because the only ways it can matter, it can be meaningful, it can be something to be worthy of even pondering, if you're an intelligence sitting in a universe with no vulnerable elements, that is, nothing can go wrong, you don't have much to think about. You don't have a problem to solve. There's no efficiency requirement. I mean, you could sit there and just rearrange furniture, and say, well, the chair should point this way, and you could fix a crooked triangle somewhere. You could, but it ain't gonna matter. The aesthetics can't matter without something that can feel about them. So it can't even matter aesthetically if something's lacks symmetry and lacks different things. It can't possibly make a difference. I mean, there's no intelligent rule that says things should be symmetrical. I mean, that's not a shootable position to take. there is no should, okay, in a world where there's no value, where there's no feeling thing to be pleased or harmed. That is, you always want to have satisfied the value equation of profiting from the exchange, profiting from the action in terms of improving the amount of red versus so it's making a profit or minimizing losses. However you look at it, it's going to be the same thing. Minimizing losses is creating profit, and it's really the only way we do profit is to prevent harm. Prevent bad is good, and there's really no better definition of good. So in the future, I think it'll generally be understood that the that the substantial amount of good that takes place is merely the extraction of a negative. So if you don't have anything harassing you, then you're going to feel good. Just that it's the byproduct of the absence of harassments. So the good isn't real, and the bad is. And the bad is the bad thing that has to be. It's just a matter of minimizing the bad, and you win. But you can't be a meaningful philosopher if you don't really understand that's the limitation of the context of a conversation about what anything means or what. Right, so all that God stuff has to go, all the quantum wooey crap goes. It's the mechanical universe. We're just part of the mechanical process. This evolution thing happened because there's a clump called Earth, and the clump called Earth ended up having enough heavy metals and heavy compounds on it that it ended up trapping an atmosphere, creating the opportunity for chemistry to be nuanced and at just the right temperature to do lots of funky stuff. Not too hot, not too cold. And so evolution was possible, but it's clearly, if you really look at the science, it's all so insanely improbable. I mean, only one neuron, so only one cell ever evolved into an electrical cell of any utility. Only one. It only happened once. There wasn't any second evolution of any other cell that does what neurons do. And there's a whole bunch of stuff like that, a whole bunch of events that had to take place, going from a cell that didn't have a nucleus to a cell that does have a nucleus. Basically, a cell had to eat another cell without killing it entirely, make it a slave to its function. I mean, all kinds of bizarre things had to happen to get where we ended up getting to this crazy point where we have 100 billion neurons, 100 billion reflexes, and they're making us think. Okay, we're a thing, and we're actually having events take place to this brain. This brain is synthesizing this whole event of being alive, and it's just synthesizing it. And so, in the process of, as I sort of put it, in the process of your brain trying to mimic value, that is, create some reason for you to think you need to lay eggs and get food and do all this important stuff for the purpose of replicating the molecule, it made actual value by trying to make you think there was value in the environment. It made value inside your own frickin' brain, which is a bizarre element to the whole crazy, wacky story. But this isn't the common function of the universe. This is the very bizarre function of the universe. This is like a triple volcano or something, or some kind of, potato chip that looks like Richard Nixon thing. This is just bizarre. And we can say, too silly. Okay, what we're doing, we're driving into a brick wall or something stupid. So I was using the metaphor of Monty Python's, where they'd end a sketch that they couldn't really end because it was not going anywhere, and they would just step into their own sketch, and just say too silly. And we can sort of step in the sense that we can read tomorrow. We can see some of it. We can see Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We can see into the future to some extent. Using our intelligence, we can predict, okay? And we can rewrite the script. We can say, well, let's not do that because it's stupid. So let's stop and rewrite the script we're going to read. And, you know, but rewriting the script is part of the script we're reading. So just like Monty Python, the guy who has to barge in and say, too silly, he's reading his script that says, you know, say it's too silly and do this whole pantomime. And all of that's just part of the show. It's not really that it was too silly. And so that's another advantage we have, in the sense that we can break that conditioning. We can, you know, learn. We can figure out that. So I a little bit. So there always comes up in this, right? The thinking, feeling thing. When you smash feelings into thoughts, you end up with, you know, psychology. Especially in this notion of reflex and habits and instincts, you know, which we have few of, but we certainly are conditioned through maturation to acquire muscle memory. Okay, you know, we can throw horseshoes and do different things, you know, hit golf balls, and we become very good at it through practicing it. And so our maturation is a kind of practice that conditions us to throw a certain way. Unfortunately, that gets kind of rigid and hard to break those very early acquired psychological habits, and so you can end up spending your whole life, as I have, tormented, you know, frankly, by a bunch of psychological triggers that are no value to your function, and it's quite annoying, frankly. That made you fat. It's the bread. Okay, it's not the meat. It's not the... So I talked a little bit about food and diet, just because some asshole left a comment where he was promoting the carnivore diet, and it was just such... It was such obvious propaganda, and it's obviously this whole idea that, you know, it's a high protein, high fat diet. It's not a carnivore diet. All right, you don't have to be a carnivore, okay? You don't have to eat raw this and raw that, and you don't have to certainly, you know, eat any of these animal products to do exactly the same thing, which is just a fuck with your metabolism. And that's all it really does. So I call it the C.R.A.P diet? No, crapmore. Yeah, the crapmore diet. And that's all, you know. It's you know, it's just pitiful that people turn everything into some moment of propaganda. You know, it's just so cheap, petty bullshit. I mean, everybody is just, you know, it's like the fucking planet's 90% trolls now. You know, it's just... I mean, it really can't be a disaster anymore, because so many trolls will die. It'll be great. So let's have a tsunami so we can kill some trolls. You know, because yeah, the odds are you're just going to kill trolls. But anyway, continuing. I mean, it's just such a pile of crap. Making gross excuses. I mean, yeah, so it's just a way of defending and making excuses for just bad behavior and saying it's okay because we're humans and we're superior and we're this bullshit and all that other bullshit, and it's just such a lie. Ugh, it's disgusting. People suck so profoundly. You just have to either control, if you can't, you know, if your habits are bad. Okay, so I was still talking about it. Like I said, I don't really want to, you know, I don't want to give anybody any advice or any of that kind of crap, but all this diet shit is just such, it's just, the subject is food and shit. That's the subject, okay? And it's just about how many calories you metabolize. So you either change how many you eat or you change how many you metabolize. But that's it. That's all you can work with. It's not that complicated. And quit pretending air makes you fat, because it doesn't. Ugh. You know. Alright, should be back. Glitch in the old software and such. Yeah, computers. Yeah, it's a mechanical device, and you know, flukes and dysfunctions, but they're real causes. It's not just random or spontaneous. Is this that our psychology is rubbish? You know, that we are... yeah, so the thinking part works good when it's not obsessed with fixing my feelings personally. So when it's given a task to do that's not entirely clearly relevant to its own personal outcome, it's pretty good at analyzing situations. But when, oh, it's itself, then it's all corrupted and broken. All of a sudden the games completely change, and that's, you can see that in so much of what people do. You know, their personal advantage gets in the way of them doing, you know, frankly, what they're supposed to be doing and such. And everyone is insecure in the sense they all need, okay, to more completeness to their life. They need, so yes, we're all hungry, and we constantly exist in that kind of a hungry state. It just keeps reoccurring. So even if we have a nice satisfying meal, we digest the event of our satisfying victory, and we just move on to the next incompleteness. That, well, we have 1 trophy, we want 2 trophies, then we want 4 trophies, then, you know, and it just never ends in terms of our inability to satiate this need to accomplish, quote unquote. And you know, it's hard to acquire enough accomplishment where you're satisfied to just sit in the couch and say, yeah, I did my job, I'm done, you know. And you know, but a lot of people's accomplishment isn't anything to do with anything they had to do, and so it's not work. And so it can appear like they're still playing, but they're really not doing any thinking. They're not doing any stressful work of years, because it's entertained by the theater, and we haven't escaped. So we're still in the Coliseum, you know, rooted. Yeah, so, you know, most of the human beings are doing that. I mean, it's just, you know, whether they're watching the Oprah soap opera or the sports baseball soap opera or whatever, it's all just watching some stupid soap opera, some drama, to vicariously live through. And then you can see the same formula in all the movies and all the rest of it. And, you know, there's no, I mean, frankly, it's getting so bad. You know, there's no story anymore. It's just karate chops and shit. You know, just car chase, karateing in the car, karateing with other cars while you're car chasing. You have a karate fight out the window or something. I mean, it's just, you know, there's no point in, you know, I mean, even if I could concede that, okay, some of that's entertaining, it's a bad entertainment. We got to know that this is junk calories. Let's not eat this shit. Well, degraded your functions, just say. And you know, it would be better if, you know, you run some antivirus software now and then. So that, I didn't even like I said that, because it's lost all meaning, because, you know, the viruses now are the operating system. So the whole system is running on virus. You know, there's no healthy cell anymore. There's just viruses. But the bright side is it means that I won't waste time feeling good about myself. And, you know, yeah, so I was just talking about the fact that I will, you know, never have my victory lap and my victory punch or whatever. You know, it'll never be that nice moment of feeling satisfied and complete. And that would be a waste of time anyway, right? So because this project's actually important, where all the other people that have a project, it's completely who fucking nobody should care, because it doesn't mean anything that you put the ball in the hoop more times in a row than anybody else. You know, what matters is, you know, sparing the future from being tortured. That's like the important thing happening. Ugh. You have to explain that. Yeah, you have to explain that to thinking people, that the important thing is the torture. it all went to hell in the bunker. Shot out of the bunker. Oh yeah, so I was using another analogy, so another little golf analogy where it was, you know, just stupid. You know, the stupid stuff that happens, and you're just, you know, it's just this decides somebody's fate. It will be decided whether they're going to have a good life or a shitty life is going to be decided by, you know, some arbitrary, silly event. But, you know, I shouldn't say arbitrary because obviously it all builds up and all this. It's all, you know, again, it's all this determinism, all this mechanical system that you can't evade. So it's all in the cards, so to speak. But I just mean that, you know, clearly the way we define winner or even innocent, right? People are innocent until proven guilty. You know, it's like, okay, well, you know, shouldn't the standard just be whether they are guilty or not? You know, I mean, obviously it's nice to be able to prove it, but you know, it just matters what the truth is and getting that right. Extend beyond, but you know, if you really think about it, that's all it is. It's just chemistry that, frankly, if you gave it a compatible environment, just like some kind of, so I was trying to come up with an analogy, but you really can't use viruses because viruses need cells to reproduce, so they can't really take over anything unless there's cells to create them. And then crystals and different things, you know, trying to figure out some way of illustrating the fact that, you know, the DNA molecule doesn't know it's stuck on Earth. And the basic mechanism, though, is just that. It's a mechanism of taking over, you know, an environment. But it's got to play that in the rules of evolution. So it gets so nuanced because you could argue, you know, I've sort of argued this, you know, that funguses theoretically should have already taken over the world, because they're so rudimentary in their function, so durable, so all this stuff. But the very fact is if they were actually to take over, then something would figure out how to eat them, and now they're going to be food. And once you're a food for something, now you're in trouble, because once something is built on the mechanism of eating you, it's a lot harder for you to survive. So you don't want to be food. So you don't want to be too abundant, because if you're too abundant, something's going to enjoy your likewise success. It's going to bleed off of your success by parasiting off of you, and it will consume you eventually. So you can't be too successful. Power to do something, we should do it, obviously, to rewrite the bad script and see. Right, so we can see it, we can recognize that we're doing something that ain't working and it's not good enough and all of those things, and then we can rewrite the script and say, well, there's no point in, you know, continuing the course of action if it's not going to get to a better solution, a better end, you know, that kind of, you know, so it's just, it's not going to get fixed until we admit that we have the capacity to see that it's futile, or to see that, oh yeah, it's going to create a bunch of horrific events that there's no way I could justify. It's going to create kids with cancer and stuff, you know, it's stuff I can't defend making. So I can't make this if it comes with that. So if the, you know, if it's tied to it, if anthrax is tied to your shiny new car, you can't take the car out of the showroom. If we can make a show out of this that's worth watching, that's worth pantomiming, you know, a play worth redoing over and over and over again. And yeah, there's just no script for that. There's nothing to write, because even a utopia requires this mechanism that's basically negative. You're not going to be hungry, I mean, you know, until you're hungry, until you create the negative condition, then you can satisfy it and enjoy the pleasure. You have to be horny, you know, you have to be thirsty, you have to be these negative things before you can enjoy the pleasure of relief. I have to stick the thorn, you know, in before you can say, ah, that feels so good when you pulled that out. The times that play has been performed, and you frankly can't do anything in your life to make up for that. So yeah, I could just have one event, the frog getting eaten alive by a snake, and I could just say, what are you going to do? What do you think is worth it? Okay, what pleasure, what joke, what experience you have is worth torturing a sentient creature for, let alone torturing complex ones like ourselves, torturing kids. You think you're doing something that's worth it? I bet you're not. Okay, I bet the truth is that you're not going to be able to do anything in your life to make up for those negatives that are created as a consequence of your life. No chance. Our presence, because our presence really doesn't have any utility. So that's the joke here, right? Is that it's not only, opens the door to torture, it doesn't do it for any good reason because it's futile. It's a simple mechanism of gratification that comes out of, first create the negative. So it's like spilling milk and then cleaning up 98% of it. Even if you cleaned up 98% of it, if you keep spilling the milk, those 2% will just keep adding up and adding up and adding up. And you're just going to live in a bunch of spilt milk. Now, I could use spilt dioxin or spilt something else, but I mean, that's what it is. There's way too much negative residue, and the compiled total of insane torment and torture that has been experienced on this planet is obscene. And there's just no prospect that we could do anything about a tiny portion of it, let alone compensate for the bulk of it. This experiment, no matter what happens, is a failure. And the only thing that makes it less of a failure is the sooner we stop it, is at least it's less of a failure. But that's all we can hope for, is less of a catastrophe. We can bunker a house against the tsunami and prevent one family from being smashed and drowned. That's the best we can do. Like I said, we can't even do that because, they're going to die of cancer anyway. It's written in Arkansas or something. But, I guess I was talking about AI isn't going to be too interested in, the tunes that people in Arkansas are humming. That it, tries to glean the best of it. The best product produced. So, and eventually it's going to be more discriminating than our silly democracy and all the rest of the stuff where we allow all the ignorant morons to make all these contributions. AI is going to be an elitist. It's not going to be inclusive. Moron isn't going to be included. Oh, okay. So it's electricity that we really run on. And so I was just talking some about the evolution of the neuron, the key event for the existence of sentience, because it's all manufactured by brains, and it's manufactured in a space that isn't directly physical. I don't know if that's the right. There's no way to say it right. I could say I could create laser beams that create a hologram or something. I could create some kind of. There's a mechanism creating it, but its creation isn't in a physical space. It's the product of what happens in physical space. So it's because of the arrangement of your neurons that you have a sensation, how the electricity travels through a sentient brain, and it produces the illusion, okay? But the physical fact is there's a physical reality that's creating this idea of being alive and sensate. It's physically doing it. It's physically making it. The part that makes it is physical. The feeling isn't. but the creation of it is. Of the thing in the simplest generality. And the point is what's that really made out of? So if you want to talk about feelings, what are they really? The argument is that they're basically, it's a negative engine. Yes. So that's what to really understand, that anything that's brain enabled is just a negative value engine, in the sense that it's just, if it can create sensations, the fact is the thing it's creating it out of is negative, and the removal of it, the removal of negative, the prevention of the whip, something to guard you against it, is the good. The goods are made out of removing of bads. The universe, I use the analogy, it's a push-averse. The universe runs on the push, the hit. It doesn't run on something else. That's it. There's only the one direction, into. There's no pull towards. There's just the absence of a push on the other side kind of argument. And the same thing's true for the function of our sentience, is that it's a negative value engine. And the best you can do is produce less negative. And then, tries to correct it. So it makes it very cold, and then, just for the... Right, so it's you're taking away a negative is the real argument. And that's just the truth of it. That's how it works. And there's no positive value. There's just the negative, the creation of the negative condition. It should be something every sentient organism that thinks, anything that thinks about feelings, should be able to say, yes, how you feel matters. It's important that you're right. So just understanding that that's where the all meaning in the universe is oriented towards, is just this idea that the only thing recognizably meaningful that matters is whether feeling things feel good or feel bad. So everything else that happens in the universe, you just ask the question, well, how did it affect feeling things? How did that affect feeling things? And then you can assign it a value. But you can't assign it any value if there's nothing feeling for it to affect. So if it doesn't affect anything feeling, then it can't be assigned any value. Or some stupid thing happens, or some bad luck or whatever, and you're just like, oh, gee, it's just so. Alright, so I'm just talking about how, we can't help but be psychological. Well, some people can help it. I'm not too good at helping it. I'm just good at shoving it, keeping it under. I have to live with it, but I don't have to talk about it. I guess that would be how to say it. But it's always pushing on me. It's always fucking with me. And it's always in the way, frankly. How I feel is always in my way. It really is just terrible molestation, rape, abuse, pain, suffering, death. Yeah, life sucks. Yeah. It's a negative value engine. But it's very controlling and, very it harms your momentum. Because the game to play the... right, so I'm just talking about the fact that thinking, about existence is burdensome. And it's not fun. It's a hard puzzle to play with. And I don't know how to analogize it. You can't really analogize it to anything, because it's just, it all ends up going very dark. There's no way to escape the bleak reality that everything that looks nice, won't stay that way. And all of it has a negative destiny. I mean, the little, the tiger in the background looks nice and healthy and all that, but his destiny was, fat, cancer, death. Yeah, it just sucks. They're all, in the end, tragic stories. We are generating a value experience. Yes, I don't know exactly, but obviously that's where we generate it, and then everything else gets assigned value based on how it affects the thing that is generating the value, the conscious experience. And it's futile and wasteful. So, too expensive. Where is that? That's supposed to be on the screen, isn't it? Yeah, what happened to that? I'll have to go find that. Anyway. So, we'll call it enough of a video. I'll go find it now. Ah, there it is. It's not a single player game. Too expensive. Not your money. Too futile. It's, you can't. There's no winning. There's just minimize your losses and such. So anyway, enough of a video. So till the next time and such and so forth and whatnot. Yeah, we'll try again and all that crap and such. Link below to that video. There were some, I think, interesting bits in there that I didn't play. I think so. But anyway, who knows? Yeah, maybe you heard the best parts. I'm not sure, though. Anyway, till the next time, and such and so forth and whatnot.